We're nearly ready to go, councillors. Okay, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, it has gone 7 o'clock, so we will start tonight's meeting. Firstly, before we commence proceedings, just as you're aware, we are doing live streaming tonight's meeting via Zoom. And this is the first time we've done this completely 100% via Zoom. So please be patient with us tonight for those people who are either watching us live or on the recording as well. Also, you know, we are working from our homes and home offices and offices. So we apologise if any members of the family happen to come and go throughout the night, or any of our pets happen to come and say good evening as well. So certainly we will do our best and we'll soldier on and get through this tonight. Thank you very much. I will open the meeting, and firstly I'd like to the council acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the Wadawurrung people, one of some 25 clans that form part of the Kulin Nation. We acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, water, culture, and the contribution they make to the life of our community. We pay respects to their past and present elders and their emerging leaders, and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Can I also note that you'll see on the agenda tonight, we are using a new template that's part of the new Local Government Act 2020 guidelines. And I'd just like to thank Philip Carruthers and his staff for getting this new template through, and I think it's fabulous, and it'll take a little bit of getting used to, but well done, Philip, and thank you very much for your assistance in this. Mr. CEO, do we have any apologies?
No, Mr. Mayor, no apologies.
Thank you very much. Councillors and officers, do we have any conflicts of interest?
Yes, Mayor. The agenda item to do with the planning report on the 118 Hesse Street is mentioned there. It's not for decision, so I do not have a conflict of interest as such, but I'll abstain from voting on that particular matter.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Merriman. I also note in the planning report under item Queen C33, which is 81 Nelson Road, excuse me, that I do have a conflict of interest. There is no decision pending on that tonight, so I don't see that there will be a conflict in tonight's agenda. There are no leave of absence from councillors. Public question time, 5.1, public question time status update. That their recommendation that council note the public question status update as presented as an adjunct to item 5.1, summarising the status of the questions that were not fully responded to at the relevant council meetings and or were taken on notice. Can I get someone to move that recommendation? Thank you. So that's moved Councillor Salter, seconded Councillor Minty. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Hands up. Thank you. Public questions. According with the Council's public question time guidelines, questions must be written and received by the Chief Executive Officer prior to 3 p.m. on the day of the ordinary council meeting. Questions received after this time will be treated as correspondence and written response provided consistent with the Council's customer service charter. Questions can be lodged online via the Borough of Queensland website, via email, via post, or in person by completing a public question time form. We do have 4 questions without notice tonight. Sorry, public questions tonight. We will be responding to those directly to the people who have submitted those questions, and they will the responses will then form part of the next minutes as well. The first question is from Carmen Bell. My question relates to council event sponsorship. What is council's position in a situation when a sponsorship event is cancelled? Question 2 from Donny Grigo. Please advise how the Borough of Queenscliff, with their partnership, Tourism Greater Geelong Bellarine, will use the new Queenscliff and Point Lonsdale brand atlas that has been produced by Tourism Greater Geelong and the Bellarine to promote tourism and support business in the borough during and post COVID-19. Also, please advise how council identifies with Pantone number 895C pink as the primary colour chosen to brand Queenscliff and Point Lonsdale. Question number 3 is from the QCA. The question, which is quite a long preamble, then we do get a question at the end. It is noted Borough of Queenscliff was subject to an external audit by Vargo over the previous year, and the report accepted by the then Mayor, Councillor Merriman, and CEO Lenny Jenner, leading to a number of comments and or recommendations being raised in the Vargo report, including strategic indicators do not communicate the outcome or impact of the council's activities. As a result, they do not provide the community or decision makers with complete and relevant information about the impact of those activities. That audited councils do not consistently interpret LGV's reporting rules. Councils also lack effective quality assurance processes to ensure that the data they report is accurate. Audited councils have not sufficiently developed adequate internal performance reporting to decision makers how well they are addressing local needs and priorities. Gaps in fraud and corruption controls at the audited councils, and in some cases important controls, are not working. The failure of these controls can foster a culture in which fraud and corruption can occur and go undetected, as a result in financial loss or reputational damage to the councils. Vargo identified expenditure where it was unclear to us how residents and ratepayers benefited, practices that may not meet public expectations, non-compliance with legislative requirements aimed at ensuring transparency over council practices to their communities and regulators. Some individuals in positions of authority need to take a broader view of their obligations. They must appreciate that they are accountable to ratepayers and residents and consider how their communities may perceive their actions. The question, while such targeted comments raise concern, can the community have an update on the progress council has made meeting or addressing the Vargo recommendations, particularly as these relate to the specific areas of governance, finance, accountability, and performance? Thank you from the QCA. We have a public question from David Connolly. The question, the audit report notes some capital projects were either high or medium risk as assessed by the auditors. Is it possible to have released the relevant appendices that are noted in the audit committee meetings but not published or available that may contain such relevant data and information? So as I mentioned earlier, we will be responding to those questions directly. Thank you very much. Council's item 6.1, ordering meeting of council. A copy of the minutes is attached. Can I get someone move that they are true and correct record? That's moved by Councillor Salter, second Councillor Minty. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Record of assemblies. The Office of Recommendation that the record of Assembly of Councils as presented in adjunct to item 7 be noted. Can I get someone move that? Move Councillor Pizzi, seconded Councillor Merriman. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8 is the notice of motion. There's a notice of motion status update. There are no motions on notice outstanding. Motions of notice, no notices of motions were received. Item 9, petitions and joint letters, there were nil. Functions attended. Obviously, most of those or all of those meetings were actually via Zoom or another electronic version. The recommendation is there that the functions attended report be received.
Move.
It's moved by Councillor Merriman, seconded Councillor Minty. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 11, community wellbeing. 11.1, endorsement for the Colac Otway Shire to join the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. I'll hand over to the CEO.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a short introduction to the councillors here. It's a pleasure to be able to bring this item to you. There's been a lot of work in the background. Colac Otway have worked closely with the Geelong Regional Library Corporation to determine that they would like to join the corporation. The corporation itself and the board think that it's a great initiative and a great complement to the actual Regional Library Corporation. And so as part of the governance model, all the participating councils need to endorse and support the joining of Colac Otway. So the recommendation from officers that the council does do that, and we extend our arms and extend the family.
Okay, I might get someone to possibly move it if we've got a mover and a seconder. So let's move Councillor Pizzi, second Councillor Salter. Any discussion?
Well achieved, well done.
Well done, thank you. I will, before taking to the vote, I will just a couple of quick comments. I think it's very pleasing that not so much Colac Otway Shire, but the community of Colac Otway voted that they wanted to join the Geelong Library Corporation. As we know, it's the #1 performing library corporation in the state, has been for the past 5 years, and that's a pretty good reason to join that corporation. And also the Colac Otway Library, actually, and its Apollo Bay Library, will bring some 37,000 items with them to the Geelong Regional Library Corporation collection as well. So that can be well used by everyone in the region. Also fits in well with being part of the G21 region as well. The only other thing I'd add is obviously economies of scale are really good for that. And also during this pandemic, in the last couple of weeks, they've started the click and deliver. So they're actually doing a home delivery service now in the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. So I think there's some really good reasons for Colac Otway to join the Geelong Regional Library Corporation. So I do have a mover and a seconder, and I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Just moving ahead with our new template. It's a little bit different. Thank you. Item 12, local economy. 12.1, review of council policy sponsorships. Hand over the executive project officer. I think Philip Carruthers is taking this one. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I start, you acknowledged the work done on the reports. I was only a small part of the team that produced the reports, and Jackie Fletcher ably led that team. So the thanks should rightly go to Jackie.
And Jackie is listening, so thank you, Jackie.
Councillors, the purpose of this report is to consider a revised council policy on sponsorships, and it's renamed event sponsorships. Council strategic objective #3 on the local economy addresses supporting the arts and cultural events and forms the context for this paper. The key change is that we'll be introducing a rolling program for sponsorship applications. So in June and July, in July every year and in December every year, we'll be calling for applications for sponsorship, in each case for the coming year, so they'll overlap. The recommendation is on the bottom of page 18.
Thank you very much.
I'll move it. I'll move.
I'll second it.
So that's moved by Councillor Merriman, second by Councillor Salter. Any discussions or questions for Philip before? Yes, Councillor Minty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to congratulate in the preparation of the document, particularly around the environmental sustainability, which is contained on page 5 of the appendix, highlighting the issues of inclusive, particularly in areas such as rubbish removal, recycling, techniques, reduction in carbon footprint, which is very important to us at this particular point in time if we're going to be trying to attract more events to the borough. And they make a positive environmental sustainable outcome in the short and during the specific period of the event. I'd also like to highlight the fact that these particular events will be here to boost visitation to the borough during the off-peak period, and I find that a very, very worthwhile thing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minty. Any other comments, councillors? If not, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's moved. Next item, we have the planning report. We'll hand over to Mr. Rajaratnam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, this is your usual monthly planning permit activity report. The summary status of the planning current applications is the leading table that you can see on page 23. You'll notice, Council, that the number of new applications received has jumped to 8, which is almost a 200% increase over last month. We only had 3 last month. So the lull I expected in the COVID-19 environment obviously hasn't eventuated. It'd be interesting to see whether this is a blip or, there's an ongoing trend that we need to be aware of, but I'll report that obviously through the monthly report. Council, the first 2 current applications you're familiar with. As you know, officers have been trying for a very long time to move those forward. The one that's missing is Nelson Road, which I discussed last month. At first, I thought that we'd made a decision on that application, but it turns out that Vic Roads has recommended that the application be refused. As a result, the applicant has asked officers to put the application on hold until they resolve the outstanding matters with Vic Roads. So on that, and you'll find, Council, that it's actually listed on page 23 of your agenda as an on hold item. So on that slightly disappointing note, Council, the recommendation of officers is on page 29, and it is recommended that you receive the report.
Thank you. That's someone to move that. Councillor.
I'll move that.
So that's moved by Councillor Pizzi, seconded by Councillor Minty. Any discussion, councillors?
Yeah, I wish to record that I abstain from voting on this matter.
Thank you. Any other discussion, councillors?
If I may, Mayor, I'd just like to add my thanks to Johan and Dinah for their continuing expert advice.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pizzi.
I will put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 15, governance and performance. 15.1, draft governance rules and public transparency policy. Mr. CEO. Oh no, Mr. Carruthers. Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider and adopt the draft governance rules and the public transparency policy. The Local Government Act 2020 requires councils to develop governance rules and a public transparency policy by the 1st of September. And I introduced this report at the July meeting of Council, and Council requested that the policies be made available for public consultation, which they have been. Minimal comments were received, and the recommendation is that councillors adopt the draft governance rules and the draft public transparency policy.
I'll move that and wish to
I'll
speak
second
to it.
that.
Okay. Councillor, we just get you to put your hands up. That'd be great. Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Merriman, second by Councillor Salter. Sorry, would someone like to talk to that?
Yes, I wish. Yes, if I may.
So you can go first, Councillor Merriman.
Again, I again commend the officers for the presentation of this report. And I note that as far as the governance rules are concerned and the question of transparency, that we are following the lead from the state government and not trying to in any way vary from the intent or the wording and the importance of these 2 particular policies. And for that good reason, I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Merriman. So someone else wanted to speak to the motion? No, Councillor Solder, you had your hand up.
I did.
Thank you. Away you go.
I think that it is such good, such excellent steps that we have reviewed these governance rules, especially our public transparency policy. With the new Local Government Act coming into being sometime soon, we will be well set up. We have always been highly transparent, but in fact, Vargo has, of course, frequently commended us. Many other councils around the state of Victoria would be well pleased to be in the happy state that we are in these issues, really. But these are excellent steps forward, and congratulations to the officers who have written these policies. Fantastic work.
Thank you, Councillor Salter. Any other councillor comments? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, that's carried. So we move to item 15.2, review of the COVID-19 hardship policy. Now I'll hand over to the CEO. Martin Gill, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When Council originally adopted this policy, they put in place a review cycle of 3 months just to gauge where we were relative to the state of emergency and the COVID pandemic. Officers have undertaken a review now and came to Council with a recommendation that, given the current climate, given the ongoing restrictions in place across the state, that it would be worthwhile extending the time periods which apply to this policy, and in doing that would allow people who may be struggling to meet their rate obligations to defer those payments in an interest-free environment until at least the 31st of December 2020. So we've put that recommendation to you, and we're pleased to do that.
I'll move it.
Thank
I
you.
wish to speak to it.
I'll second it.
Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Merriman, second Councillor Solder. Councillor Merriman, you moved the motion. You can go first if you like.
Again, I welcome this report and the foresight of the officers in bringing it forward, given that the current policy has a termination period of the 30th of September. It's obviously very important that we, at this stage, indicate what's going to occur past that date. I also welcome the report so far, insofar as it looks at the opportunity for people post the 30th of December to still come, 31st of December, to still come forward if they are still in difficulties, with some plan methodology by which over time they can make up the rate difference that they now find themselves in. So I think for the community, this is a very welcomed continuation of what is a good policy, and particularly as it gives the opportunity for some people who find unfortunate circumstances to come and have a way out of trying to manage their affairs. And I think that's an added plus.
Thank you very much, Councillor Merriman. Councillor Solder, you've had a...
Oh, no, I think it comes under the heading of trying very hard to look after our whole community.
Well done. Councillors, anything else? Any other councillors? No, I've got a quick question for the CEO. Obviously, at the moment, we're seeing on the news about the state government potentially wanting to lengthen the state of emergency. Does that any way have any reflect on what we decide here on tonight's meeting or moving forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no direct link. Obviously, we take our cues from the state government in terms of the time period, but if the state government decides to end the state of emergency earlier, we don't have to end this policy earlier. If they decide to extend it further beyond the 31st, we can come back and review again and extend it ourselves. So,
okay, thank you. I just think it's something that some of the community may want to be aware of. Councillors, I will just put that to the vote now. All those in favour of the
Aye.
recommendation?
Aye.
That's
Aye.
unanimous. Thank you very much. So we're moving to item 15.3, Audit and Risk Committee Charter. I'll hand over to Mr. Philip Carruthers. Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable councillors to consider resolving the acceptance of a draft Audit and Risk Committee Charter and to make appointments to this new committee. The strategic objective number 5 and governance and performance is to provide transparent and accountable governance and meet all legislative requirements. The adoption of an Audit and Risk Committee Charter and appointment of members to the committee meet the requirements of the new Local Government Act 2020 and the good governance objectives of our council plan. The current Audit Committee have reviewed the Charter and support its adoption. Appointment of the members of the current Audit Committee to the new Audit and Risk Committee enables continuity of approach during the period of implementation of the Act and of the Charter. Councillors, the recommendation is at the bottom of page 38.
I'll move
Thank you very
that
much.
and wish to speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merriman. Moved by Councillor Merriman, seconded. Someone put the, thank you, Councillor Minty. Thank you. Councillor Merriman, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I think it's a refreshing approach that has been taken under the new Act to ensure that this occurs. The point I'd like to add is that we are very fortunate for the 4 community members who serve on this important audit committee, starting with Barney Orchard as his chair, Graham Phillips, Richard Ball, and Helen Buttress. Their service to our council and to our community is outstanding. They are terribly efficient. They certainly do their homework, and for those members of council who serve on this committee, we are certainly subject to a degree of professionalism which we should be very thankful for, and which is a big credit as far as our operation as a council. We do have some very highly qualified people who are prepared to give of their time to ensure that all the requirements and the work that we do as council is properly in accordance with the Act and meets all the requirements of a proper audit facility, given that we are subject to 3 audits.
Thank you,
So
Councillor.
I commend this report.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Merriman, and as a person who sits on the committee as well, I and certainly concur with your statement. Councillor, any other? Yeah, Councillor.
I would also like to, as a little addendum to all of that, congratulate Councillor Merriman on a very long contribution to this committee. He has brought many pearls of wisdom. You should note that I'm saying this. He has brought many pearls of wisdom to this committee, and the Borough of Queenscliff has been richer for his input.
Thank you very much, Councillor Salter. Any other discussion, councillors? No, thank you. I'll put that to vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That's passed. Move to item 15.4, delegation CEO to staff. I'll hand over to, I think we're handing over to Philip again, Mr. Carruthers. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to enable councillors to consider resolving the delegation of certain powers to the CEO and members of staff. The report presents to council recommended amendments to its existing instrument of delegation to the CEO and its existing instrument of delegation to the members of the staff. It takes into account all the legislative changes which were assented to or made on or after the 28th of January 2020, which affect council's powers, duties and function. Council seeks advice from Maddox lawyers on these matters to ensure that it's abreast of all these legislative changes and requirements. The recommendation is on the bottom of page 42 and the top of page 43.
I'm prepared to move this recommendation and wish to speak to it, please.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you. That's moved by Councillor Merriman.
I'm seconding that.
The second, Councillor Salter. Councillor Merriman, you've moved the motion. You'd like
Yeah,
to...
in speaking to this, firstly, again, I commend the report that's been given to us and the detail in which it entails. And when you go to the appendice that is part of the agenda papers, one sees the detail which is required in this particular motion. And it is of outstanding knowledge to everyone that we do such a thing as consider the delegation that we as councillors move to the CEO. Now, many in the community, I'm sure, do not fully appreciate the requirements that we have to meet in this detail. And for 5 councillors to have the sole responsibility for all of these matters would be a real challenge in itself. And I'll just hold up the appendice that goes with it. And that's what we are delegating, every item that's in there. And we still leave a fair bit for ourselves. But I think the importance of this particular resolution is detailing exactly what we say the Chief Executive Officer has a responsibility delegated by us to he and his officers as he directs to do all this work. It's a substantial amount of work. We get reports on what occurs, but importantly, it's there for the day-to-day operation of our council officers. And we take a very keen interest in ensuring that what we have delegated is well and truly dealt with, and that we do know the obligation that we're placed in and the obligations we're placing upon our CEO and their officers. So when one looks at this particular resolution and it's cold, it might look to be a very simple matter, but in detail, it is significant. And for the new councillors who may come in after October, it's terribly important that they understand the role in which this particular resolution places upon the CEO and removes, in the first instance, from councillors. It is a significant change in the way that one would think that things work, but it does work much better to allow the officers, the CEO, to do their job. So that's why I fully support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Merriman. Well said. Any other comments, councillors?
I would
Councillor
just,
Salter, you had your hand up?
I did.
Thank you, Councillor Salter.
You can't see it when it's here. I need to.
No, I can see you. I'm taking a leaf out of the...
It's that little bit there.
I'm taking a leaf out of the Miss Salter School teacher book.
I would like to add to Bob's comment and say we have actually spent an extraordinary amount of time looking at all the different parts of the delegation so that it represents for us hours and hours of work that we have gone through and seen which member of staff has what level of delegation and which parts we've sent to the CEO. So we haven't just signed off a big thick document, we've actually looked at it quite substantially.
Thank you, Councillor Salter. Councillors, any other comments? No, if not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. So carried, thank you. We move to item 15.5, item appointment to the Queens of Hub Project Control Group. Mr. CEO. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to be a bit of a regular item, this one, but this time it's the Geelong Library. There's been a change in staff at the Geelong Library, and so they've asked us to appoint Roy Watson onto the project control group, replacing Kathy Ferenz, who did a great job and guided or helped guide the project through some difficult times, and has successfully put the library's position on the table and brought a lot of wisdom to the design process. So we thank Kathy and we welcome Troy.
I'll move the resolution.
So that's moved by Councillor Merriman, second by Councillor Minty. Councillors, any discussion?
No.
Councillor Salter, I see you've got your hand up. Thank you.
Rude person. Just that we would wish Kathy Ferenz a very happy retirement.
Well said. I think that's important. She's done a lot of work for us for the hub, but also for the Library Corporation in general for many
Yes,
years. And
indeed.
she's sailing off to her own little world of reading books forever. So we're looking forward to seeing her in a different light, and hopefully maybe down at one of our festivals, literary festivals. But certainly Kathy will be sorely missed by everyone in our region.
Turning the page, but always welcome in the Borough of Queenscliff.
Well said, well said. Councillor, we have a move and a seconder. All those in favour?
Wait.
All right.
Thank you, that's unanimous, thank you. Item 16, authorisation of signing and sealing of documents. There's no reports to consider. Questions without notice. 17, question without notice, status update. No questions without notice, outstanding. Councillors, questions without notice. Do we have any questions without notice? No, thank you. We do have a list of council meetings. So our next, if required, planning review will be on the Thursday, the 10th of September. Our next council meeting will be Thursday, the 17th of December. That is, will be our last meeting before we go into caretaker mode. So that's the council meetings. Item 19, offer a recommendation that in accordance with section 61 and 66 of the Local Government Act, the meeting be closed to members of the public for the consideration of the following confidential items. 19.1, confirmation of the 23rd of July 2020 confidential council minutes, and 19.2, CEO matters. Can I ask that someone move, that we move in the camera? Moved by Councillor Salter, moved by Councillor Merriman. All those in favour?
Can I just speak to it for a minute? I think it's worthy to note that the first item to do with the minutes is obviously covered by section 3 1H of the Act, and the
Yes.
second matter we're going to talk about, CEO matters, is covered by section 13(1)(f) of the Act. So we are operating and need to operate in accordance with the Act, and hence we need to go into deal with these confidential items as a confidential matter.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. We will. Sorry, I have a move and a second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you,
Aye.
councillors. We will just ask you to stay on where you are at the moment, contrary to what we said earlier before when we had our practice run. If you can just please stay online. Thank you until we hear from Connor. Thank you.
One moment, councillors.
Thank you.
Did we have anybody